Well, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good ever what time of day it happens to be that you're listening to the Tattooed Teacher podcast. Now, on this episode, I have the amazing Nicole Barber. Now, Nicole is a dear, dear friend of mine. We have known each other for a number of years now. And but more importantly, she is an amazing human, a mother of two, a husband to Matthew, who is a very good mate of mine as well. But the reason why I got Nicole on for today's episode is her job to pay the bills is she is a dietitian. And as any teacher out there knows, a can of mother and a Mars bar for breakfast is probably not the best thing for the teacher or the student. So, Nicole, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Phil.
Now, you're a dietitian. What led you into that? What's your why behind why you want to learn more about food and the body and interactions and all that sort of stuff?
Oh, I have always been inspired by the human body. I think it's just the more you learn about it, the more inspired you get by the human body. I think it's unreal the way it's created, the way it works, the way it operates. I also had to pick something, and I love food. I love people. It all just fit my boxes. So yeah.
That is fantastic. Now, like I said, we've known each other for a while, and you've always been a healthy. You put all us lads to shame with how you look after yourself, how you exercise. Even your brother, fit, young, healthy guy. When we used to hang out, did was that inspired by your parents, or did you pick it up at school, or is it just the way you guys grew up?
Uh, Not particularly. I don't know why we both got so inspired by it. Like Jolie's right into fitness, as you said, and I don't know. He did exercise physiology as well as business, and went the business pathway. But both of us, had a real interest. It wasn't something we grew up on, but something we both really liked, which it's kind of cool.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, speaking of, well, see, he's gone into business. You're actually in, like, you do the full dietitian. You understand how food works and the interactions and the good and the bad and everything in between. But for us, for me as a teacher, look, I know when kids eat bad food or they don't eat food, they perform poorly. They often their moods are erratic. Um, so in a sort of a let's just dive in. I've got some questions that you helped me sort of structure because it's fantastic because that's the way you work. So that we can explain things and it puts things into perspective for us as educators and people who have no real understanding of the intricacies of being a dietitian or a nutritionist. So we know that they affect cognitive performance. We know it affects the brain and the behavior. Um, so why is it so important that students get good nutrition? They have good meals. They do all that sort of stuff, especially in their adolescent and academic years.
Mhm. Such a good question, and something I'm becoming even more passionate about because nutrition is so essential for the brain. And the brain is like, it's this energy demanding organ. It demands 20% of all our energy that we give it through the day. So our food, I always think of the brain like the tax man, like he takes regardless. I'll take my 20% and other organs can get compromised if we haven't given our body enough fuel. He will take. So what we eat is directly related to how our brain function or our cognitive function. And our cognitive function are things like focus, memory, and problem solving skills. And studies are really helping us see how much nutrition now plays in academic performance. And I love that because for a long time, we've always had sport performance, food, pre-fuel, post-fuel, recovery fuel. I think what we now really need to think about is brain performance if we want our students to really leverage their potential in their academics, because the food has a significant impact on it. And like there was a study in the nutrients paper that showed that balanced diets can particularly improve students' cognitive function, emotional regulation, and overall academic performance. And on the flip side, we had another Australian study by Jacker and colleagues that showed a poor diet or one high in processed foods leads to poorer concentration and even cognitive decline. So when students start really prioritizing those whole nutrient foods over sugary foods, they're actually going to start supporting brain function, which will then platform their learning abilities. And you start then seeing them being able to study for longer, contribute to clearer thinking, because they're actually leveraging their ability through what they're eating.
So it's not just about getting sugar and water into your body. It's got to be the right stuff. So, I mean, school canteens, they provide food, but you mentioned processed foods, and you see a lot of them. And unfortunately, you go to Woolworths or Coles or whatever supermarket you shop at. And the vast majority of foods are highly processed or processed, but they're cost effective. So how does we want our kids to eat well and to perform well, but how do we make sure that we get the right fuel into them?
And I guess that comes with like teaching what is the right types of foods and what types of foods we need to lean on, because unfortunately these foods aren't the ones with the pretty labels and the bright purple wrapping and the cans that you find as you described. These are the ones that take a bit more effort, and the ones that we need to put together in the home or know how to put together our food groups. So our different food groups that we can go through, they're the ones that we want our students to really lean into if they're going to maximize their brain performance.
So, I mean, we all did, food tech or home ec or whatever it was called at the time when we did it. And there was the healthy food pyramid as such. And now, look, there's all sorts of conspiracies out there, and there's this and there's that, and there's big farming, and there's big sugar, and we talk about all those things. But one thing I've heard is that the current structure, or the structure that maybe you and I were taught, should have actually been flipped to a certain extent. That because we should have had plenty of these, but then certain fats were always absolutely minimized. But we should be, you hear about essential fatty acids, and then good cholesterol, which you can only get from high fat foods or things like that. So how do we balance that with, how do we explain that to our students, or how do we as parents, I'm a parent, I mean, I'm now a grandparent, but how do we work that out so that we are doing our best for the students and the young people coming through?
I always try and think more about the meals rather than that overall food pyramid, because I think that food pyramid can be hard to relay on a practical term. And I think about what each meal needs and working matrix. So I need A plus B to make a meal. And when we start then being able to identify what is my A, what is my B, we can work with lots of different foods then. So my A's will be my carbohydrates, and my carbohydrate food group needs a place in each meal. So my carbohydrates are things that will provide my brain with energy. And the brain runs on glucose, which comes from our carbohydrates. And these guys are good to pick if they're more complex, which means they're things that have fiber in them. So they're things like whole grains, breads and cereals, potatoes, rolled oats. They all provide more of a steady release of glucose over the time versus more of your processed carbohydrates. So they're the ones that we want to lean in on picking more of those complex carbohydrates. We know, though, that they have a time window. So they only last for so long. And you'll see this in sport. They top up. Carbohydrates last for so long, and then we need to refuel. So while we can have some carbohydrates for breakfast, say we might have some toast or some cereal, we need to also leverage that through the day and make sure that the meals also have some carbohydrates in them, because maintaining focus and mental clarity through the day comes from when we include them. So something as simple as having a sandwich with the appropriate toppings can actually have the right meal matrix, which can support the students' brains through that day. So he would be my first food group, and I would lean on my carbohydrates. My second food group, I would lean in my B, so my A plus B is my protein. And we need them both to come together as a marriage. We often talk about protein as the gym. The people that want to bulk up, the people that want to grow some muscle, it's the gym boys that need the protein. I want us to think about protein totally differently, because protein actually has a significant effect on the brain. Protein is essential for making neurotransmitters, and these neurotransmitters actually help with mood regulation, memory, and focus. Because protein foods actually give our body amino acids, and those amino acids make those neurotransmitters. So things like dopamine and serotonin we might have heard of. They'll regulate mood and emotions. So these guys have a key role in this brain part. The other part is, while proteins don't give us immediate energy, they do give us an ability to sustain the meal and create satiety. So they keep us fuller for longer, which therefore means we don't drop off in that concentration and brain fog, and we have a longer ability to function and feel more sustained when we include them in the meal. So we start looking at the meals and go, do I have these two different things? A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that protein-rich foods help improve attention and memory performance in participants, especially when included in the morning. So I think that's where we can get our toast, but if we don't pop some eggs on there, or if we get our cereal, we need to pop some yogurt on there. So if we put them both together, we're going to give our body energy as well as then improve that brain performance in our students.
So is that why? So in the morning, when I get up and I'm running late, well, I mean, you don't want to know my diet in the morning, but if I'm running late and I want to just grab a quick bite, and I go to a cafe and I get like a bacon and egg roll, I'm set for almost the whole day. Like I can concentrate. I don't feel hungry. I can do all the things I need to do. So by putting the sourdough or the breads that are on there, plus the bacon, plus the egg, plus obviously the barbecue sauce,
Yep.
is that why that works so well as a breakfast?
Perfect. Yeah, because you've got your different parts. So you're working your meal matrix. So if you get more of that, grainy toast, you're going to do even better. And then you're adding your protein topping. So you're adding in those eggs that are coming into that. So it's perfect. And like you said, you feel the effect of that. You don't get that tired slum an hour or two later if you had Vegemite toast.
Yeah. Ah, well, that's good to know that it's the bacon egg roll comes in handy.
Well, you can leverage it. So you could do it eggs with avocado on toast. Do you know what I mean? You can change it up too and get even more, because then you add in something called healthy fats. Healthy fats are really important for this brain structure too, because we know that the brain is made up of probably over 60% fat. So the structure of the brain has a huge role of the fat. And so you can take it even to, and that's where you start doing this performance level with your food. So you can add in layers. What I love is every time we add in layers, we can get more out of our meal. And studies are showing omega-3s have a huge role in focus, memory, and cognitive performance as well, showing that it's boosting performance and retaining better memory.
So your omega threes, they're not just the you see the ads on the TV, or it's not just your fish oil. It's found in other things that might taste a little bit better, or if you have a particular diet where you might be vegan or vegetarian, you don't want to take that supplement, so you can find it in other foods.
Yeah, so vegans they will need the supplement, but other foods for us will be our oily fishes are our best source. So when we can use our salmon and sardines, but we can also get small amounts from flax seeds and walnuts and other foods like that.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Good to know, so I can stop the fish and chip shop and not feel too bad about myself.
Well, if you get the salmon.
Now, you were saying earlier, when we were first talking about what we need to eat and how it can help or hinder performance, how and we've sort of touched on it, and we've talked about carbohydrates and proteins, but what else what else can we do, or what else can we eat that sort of, I guess, on a day-to-day things? Because we talk about proteins and carbohydrates, and most
Mm,
people think potatoes and meat um, as
mm,
your main sources. But what else, and why is it? And you sort of touched on it, but again, I just sort of want to reiterate why it's so important for our brain health.
mm. And I guess this is where we can even now maximize a bit more because all of these things our bodies can't make. For some reason, we have a requirement to lean on nature. We don't have the ability to make our own carbohydrates or glucose. We can't make those amino acids for the brain to make those neurotransmitters. And same comes in another group, which we call our micronutrients, our vitamins and minerals. We have to obtain them from our diet. We have this relationship where we need to lean on nature because we can't make these nutrients. So these become essential nutrients. And so when we can start adding in some more of these layers, we actually can now improve the brain performance even more because the brain needs them to do a lot of specific jobs. And there's three I would love to share light on because I think they're really cool when we talk about them in brain health. So they'll be our B vitamins. We know a lot about B vitamins from Barocca, so our BB Bounce.
Yep.
But it is that. So B vitamins we can find in whole grains. We can find them in meats, dairies, fruits, veggies, legumes, avocados, potatoes, and eggs. But they have three really cool roles on the brain. So they're involved in energy, which is where we know that Barocca helps us feel a bit better. They help convert food into energy. So they support that brain function. They're also involved in producing neurotransmitters. So that's things like the serotonin, the dopamine, and the GABA. Serotonin, dopamine, and GABA. So they'll improve and regulate mood, focus, and cognition. And then we also know that B vitamins can really help our brain health and memory. So B12 and folate maintain the myelin sheet that insulates nerve cells, which means they support communication between neurons, memory, and cognitive function. So B vitamins found in so many foods have such a key role to the way the brain functions. The next one I want to talk about is magnesium. So magnesium, we often hear about, again, sport cramps, but we need to take it to our brain. Magnesium is involved in regulating neurotransmitters. So it ensures there's a balancing between the neurotransmitters and the signals that are being sent. And it also has a key role in the release of serotonin, which is our feel-good hormone. It also helps support synapse plasticity. So that means the ability to adapt and learn. So having adequate levels of magnesium actually is linked to improved memory and learning. And then it also has a really key role in stress management. So it actually helps to reduce the stress hormone cortisol. And we know that when we have too high cortisol, it can negatively affect the brain. The last one I want to tip on is iron. Iron is found in our hemoglobin but carries oxygen around. It oxygenates our brain, and that's important for alertness and cognitive function. Iron also is produced in neurotransmitters as well. So iron has a key role in dopamine, neurotryptophan, and serotonin. These guys, again, are involved in mood, focus, and motivation. And then iron is also involved in forming myelin sheath, which means that helps protect against nerve fibers and speed up communication in the brain. So if I was to summarize them, because I know that was so much information, but your B vitamins are your BB bounce. They are your energy, your mood, and your memory. Your magnesium's your neurobalances, your stress reduction, and your learning ability. And then your iron is going to oxygenate. It's going to help with mood and cognitive alertness. Does that help summarize a little bit more what we can do with our food?
Absolutely. And look, I mean, I know we're sort of talking more about students and
Mm,
how we can help them in their day to day, but you know, teachers like even myself and colleagues, we are under a tremendous amount of stress. We are doing all these things, and we are rushing from one place to another, and often don't have a
mm,
tremendous amount of time. But it sounds like with the right planning and the right
mm.
foods, instead of just going to the vending machine or just on a drive through I guess just get us through. Um, if we just sort of plan it out with very simple foods, we can actually sustain ourselves quite well and actually make our our day, our well being during the day, a little bit easier.
Absolutely. And that's where you actually take control on how do I want to feel today. And it's a direct relationship to what did I choose to eat today.
That's crazy. It's crazy to think that. I mean, I guess we hear it, we understand it, oh, like we know it, um,
Mm,
but it's like, well, how do you actually how do you actually do that? Now, you've talked about serotonin and dopamine, and we know that kids looking on their, and we know that your mobile phones and your games and a whole bunch of things, and humans, we even human connection gives us that dopamine hit. But we know if we overload it, obviously it messes with our mood regulation and our, obviously brain function. So does, I guess, the combination of too much, stimulation and a poor diet in the sense of a not a well structured diet, does that combination like just amplify the negative effects of what's actually happening?
you would imagine so, based on the research and what we see, and based on how we can see our kids cognitively decline in the afternoon, studies in the afternoon. Studies are showing that when you do have those poor diet, poor sleep, overuse of technology, you're getting different outcomes.
Yeah, so I guess it's a challenge, isn't it, for parents, for staff, for students to try and juggle all this in such a fast pace. And
Mm,
like you said, it doesn't come in the bright purple wrappers, and it doesn't always
mm,
you know doesn't always hit that sweet spot of the sugar and salt and fat,
mm,
all in in that perfect combination to want you more.
mm,
Like, I mean, I guess one of my vices is Coke. I love having a Coke, and I have had to limit myself because I know, well, if I drink as much as I actually want, the weight just, I'm straight up there. Um, but I know there's a huge. I know even though it's sweet and you just want to, for some people it's sickly sweet, but it's so
mm,
sweet. But the salt in there is just phenomenal. So
mm.
is that what sort of, I guess, processed food does? It gives you the taste, and you think, oh yeah, I'm eating a chicken burger, but there's all this extra stuff in there, so you lose the benefits of what the chicken, or the chicken and the lettuce and stuff does.
Lose the benefit, or like,
Or sort of, so you think you're having a healthy burger, from, let's say, you go to McDonald's. We know McDonald's isn't, it's getting better, and
mm,
compared to some different countries around the world, Australia is quite healthy
mm,
in relation. But you go to, say, McDonald's, and you go, oh yeah, I'm going to get a chicken burger. So you get the burger, and it's got chicken, it's got that meat protein, it's got some lettuce, it's got a little bit of mayo, so it's got the egg and a little bit of fat, and then it's got the carbohydrates in the bun. But you know that within half an hour to an hour you're hungry again.
mm.
So where's the, like, nutritionally, what's the trade-off? How do they do that, and why do they why do you think they cast it as healthy and it just attracts the kids to do it?
That's an interesting one. And I think now you start looking at different types of food. So we know that bread looks very differently. So that bun wouldn't have a fiber content, like, say, you get some whole grain bread from Baker's Delight. And so the fiber content makes the difference there in how slowly that carbohydrate is digested and the nutrients that gives the body. So that bun at McDonald's will be very sweet without fiber. And whereas the whole grain bread we get with the seeds and the fiber is going to be a lot slower broken down. So it's going to sustain you for longer. Like you said, you feel hungry after McDonald's because it's broken down very, very quickly by the body, whereas the whole grain bread won't. When you say you made yourself a homemade steak sandwich, that steak sandwich at home with your steak, your salad, your fresh ingredients will leave you feeling a lot different to that McDonald's burger. There's also something that I don't know whether it has probably a lot more chemicals on it as well.
Yeah.
I own a cheeseburger that I've owned for 15 years now. It's never gone off. There's something else to that processing.
Yeah.
And so my clients meet that, they see my cheeseburger. It's not the same. Do you know what I mean? There's something else happening. So I think that's where we're going through that total different pathway of what else is going on in that food and how that food digests.
Yeah, and I guess if it's got sort of, our bodies, well, you definitely know this, but our bodies are made to process in a certain way. And
Yes.
if, I guess, for want of a better term, those forever chemicals get into our systems, that's it, they're there. And then that can affect, I guess, all the way our body, cell reproduction and
Mm.
I guess, the way connectivity happens within our body to get the blood to the right spots, or the electrical currents from up and down the spinal cord and all that sort of stuff. So as you can tell, I'm an amazing physiologist and I know how the body works.
Well, like you said, I've just commented on all the ways these, like, say, iron makes, myelin sheeting, and that's all part of the body's processing to function. But it can only do that if we give it the nutrient, and it has to get the nutrient from the food. So if it can't digest and break down that food or draw the nutrient out of the food, how does it then make the myelin sheeting to make those communication wires in the brain? So it has to draw those nutrients from the brain, from the food.
Yeah. So do you think it's to a certain, I guess, the healthy food education that people need is missing? It's just like it's overpowered by the commercialism of the processed food manufacturing behemoth that it might be. And when I talk about that, I'm not just talking fast food restaurants, because look, they are, sometimes that's, some nutrition's better than none, and if you can only afford that, because for some families to get a $30 KFC meal deal, for example, I know it's $30 or $33. I know it's that because I buy it. So I'm just using it as the example, so they can actually feed their family for $30, and that'll get them through one night. But then, to go to a grocery store to buy a night's worth of groceries might cost them $50. So
Mm.
it's, I guess, that's a big impact as well.
Absolutely. And we do need to work, do you know what I mean, family by family, and see what we can do. What I do always find, though, is in a bag of rice or a bag of potato, that can last a lot more meals than, say, the hot chips that we buy from the takeaway store. That's those hot chips, whether it's $7 for a large hot chips for tonight's family dinner, they'll all be gone. But that bag of potatoes might be similar price, but you might get 2 or 3 meals out of that bag potato. So we're working with some of those ingredients and then becoming strategic in how you use those ingredients can really help.
I guess is that something that, I guess, with your clients you discuss about, okay, well, look, here's quick and easy, and I understand it, but here, if we do this, you have a little bit of an outlay, but it lasts you just that bit longer and is actually much better for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it comes back, and the thing with all this is none of this food is quick and easy. These foods that we're talking about that we want to, and it doesn't need to be complicated. You might go, every morning I have eggs on toast, and each lunch I take a chicken sandwich. It doesn't need to be complicated. The body needs the same requirements every day. We've got to actually get better at planning. Businesses are successful. Why are businesses successful? Because they spend a lot of time forecasting. They have teams. They don't just go, oh, Apple's brought out a new, oh, we better do something. They've spent years forecasting and working out what trends and models are going to be. And yet we spend zippo forecasting for our own body, and a human body is so much more important. So we've just got to get better at strategic play. What are we going to have for lunch this week and role play it? What are we going to have for dinner this week and coming up with it? And I know a lot of people tell me I hate meal planning, but it actually makes meals easier when we know what we're doing. I'm coming home too. It actually makes the whole thing easier, and it actually saves money because, like you said, if you buy those potatoes and you know that's going to give you those 2 meals, that $7 is being used a lot more effectively than if we just buy the hot chips that serve one dinner's meal, and we're usually hungry afterwards and go and eat more food.
Yeah, it comes to, planning is a massive thing, because I know, like, I get home and from the end of the day, I'm tired, I'm exhausted. It's like, what do you want to eat? And it's just like, oh, I've got plenty of stuff that I could do, but you know what? It's quick, it's easy. I'm just going to go get whatever it is from wherever it might be. Um, and I get through the night and I feel crap the next morning, and then it's sort of, I keep sort of, there's sometimes where I just keep knocking myself back by doing that.
Mm.
But then all of a sudden, like, I don't know if you've experienced this, you might have been like, you might have been away on holiday, so you're eating, rich foods, and you're out and you're just moving around. But then all of a sudden, my body I just want a nice salad sandwich or I just want a piece of plain. I love eating meats, so I just want
Mm.
a nice steak, a couple of baked potatoes, or scallop potatoes on the barbecue, and a green salad. So does our body, like, do we need to listen to our body more?
Like you said, your body's calling you for nutrients because it can't function without it. And that's why we have these things that are essential. Like, and when doctors go, your iron's running low, we need to give you iron tablets, or we need to infuse you, because we know without that, it's critical. So you start to feel the effects of going, I really need those scallop potatoes and I need those veggies. Your body is not able to do its processing without those nutrients. It's needing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I always think that quick and easy scenario you describe them, where you come home, you're like, no, don't have it. We're just going to buy. I often wonder if that is more time saving than putting eggs on toast. By the time you drive there, sit in those drive through queues, I swear they're longer than boiling an egg. And then you come home, they're not quick and easy. We're led to believe they are. Really, it's just that you don't have to think.
Yeah.
And what we want to do is come up with strategies that take out the thinking. Because everyone's favorite meal is spag bowl. Why? Because you know how to do it. You don't have to think. You brown the mince, boil the pasta. We want to do those meals. Like I said, meals don't need to be complicated. We just need to know how to execute them. Like spag bowl, where it's just boil the pasta. There's no thinking. And if we get strategic with our meals, we can do the same, where we're not actually taking out that, what am I coming up with tonight? Tonight, this is what I'm doing. And that comes back to, what are we doing this week? So therefore, we're saving that. And like you said, we're now leveraging the way we feel. And because we feel better, we're going to come from a better platform that we're actually doing life better. Students, teachers, we're all going to be focusing better. We're going to be performing better. We're going to be marking papers better. We're going to be studying better. Why? Because our food is fueling our body.
Yeah, you make all good points, Nick. Now I've just got to put it into plan now that you've told me, and I have to listen to you because you're a professional. So now, one thing I was going to ask you as well is, we've talked about a lot about food and the fuel that it is, and we've talked about a lot of meat proteins and just regular breads, but with someone who has health issues, so they might be celiac, or they might have a gluten intolerance. They could be vegetarian or vegan. How do they go about? And it's becoming, I see it more and more with students, that diets are very different. Lifestyle choices are very different. So, are there enough foods out there that we can go to a grocery store and get everything our body needs without, I guess, without one getting sick, for example, with a celiac or a gluten intolerance. Um, or to be able to live the lifestyle that we want to live, in regards to, as an example, veganism or vegetarianism.
Absolutely. Our body doesn't give a rat's razoo how it gets iron. It just needs the molecule. So whether that's coming from, do you know what I mean? Whichever food is its transporter, whether it's coming from the tofu, whether it's coming from the eggs, whether it's coming from the steak, same as calcium. It doesn't mind if it's coming from the cow's milk or if you're using your tofu. It just needs the molecule. So we just use the different types of foods to ultimately give the body the molecule it's needing. So whichever category people are, whether it's vegan, vegetarian, they're just eating fish, we just working that and go, okay, how do we find your food source of iron, or how do we find your food source of calcium? Because that's what the body needs. It just needs the molecule. The food is just the vessel to bring it into the body. And we find the right type of food that fits for that person's moral beliefs, health beliefs, whatever it is, we just use that molecule. Same as, do you know what I mean? Celiac is fantastic because food innovation means we're making so many more foods now that are suitable. And again, we're looking for their type of carbohydrate with fiber and just loading in that, making sure they get enough fiber with whole grains and using gluten-free alternatives. And there's so many more on the shelf that we have so much more potential now to leverage any person's diet, no matter what the category it sits. We don't get caught in the headlines. We just look for the foods that give those nutrients.
So for people who are against that, like there's a lot of memes going around up here. As most people know, in southeast Queensland, there was the cyclone Alfred that just went through. Shelves were cleared of everything, but there was a lot of meme reels going around where, they're filming and everything is empty, and then they get to like a health food section and the gluten free and all this sort of stuff is still sitting there, and people are like, yeah, I'm not that hungry. So is it, do you think it's got a negative stigma that needs to change?
Possibly. I haven't seen those reels, but possibly. But for those that need it, it's medically there to support them. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, because I mean, I know, again, there's various times where, with our kids, we have, as you know, with kids, they can have reactions to certain things, and it's just like, okay,
Mm,
well, let's negate this out of their diet and
mm,
and supplement it with this and see if that changes, and then if that doesn't, let's remove this and this and this. So, I mean, I know when I was a child, I had allergic reactions. I couldn't eat for a period of time. I couldn't have oranges or chocolate because, for whatever reason, I got migraine headaches as a
mm.
reaction to whatever was in there. So I guess the body,
And that's something we looked at food chemicals. So it would be there is a type of food chemical, whether it's an amine, you have a sensitivity to. And that's the ability that we know science now, and we can work with that to reduce your headaches.
yeah, the body's an interesting thing. It's a complex vessel that we I guess we take for granted, and I think to a certain extent looking at what we eat, is we should actually be more careful with it.
I think you've nailed it there, Phil. We take it for granted. Sports people, like, you're not going to let them run out of the field without their pre-workout or pre-fuel or whatever they are in their recovery. And yet every day is a game performance. Every day we turn up to school, we're on performance. We're using our brain to perform, and yet we take it for granted and don't find really simple, practical ways to support that body. So therefore, we're utilizing it to its best potential. We're running on 2 cylinders instead of 4, or it's like we're putting, you would never put the wrong type of fuel in a sports car. You wouldn't run it on E10. Why do we run the body on E10? Like, we need 98. We are optimized engines.
Yeah, I mean, you make 100%. Yeah, and that's a great parallel that I guess a lot of people will understand. Um,
Mm.
which, we're talking about liquids here, which leads us to another thing. It's a fantastic segue there, Nick. Um, Hydration. Like, I see kids rock up, and, like, I mean, I drink a lot of water. As an educator, I probably during any day, any standard day, I will probably drink anywhere between 1 to 2 liters of water in my teaching day, sometimes more. But also on top of just straight water, I'm drinking a couple of cups of tea. I'll have a cup of coffee. I'll have my can of Coke. And I'll do those things. But then you see kids, they rock up to school drinking a can of whatever energy drink they like at the time. Morning tea, they'll get a Powerade or something like this, and they go, no, I am hydrating. I'm doing all these things. But you look at, like, is that the right type of hydration for what their young bodies need?
So it's so true. And I think we underestimate how much hydration affects cognitive performance and how much even a mild dehydration can really have a significant impact on our memory, attention, and mood. And that brain is 70% water, and even a 1 to 2% drop off in hydration status will have a significant effect in our ability to focus. So we'll see difficulty in focusing, we'll see slower reaction times, we'll see reduction in retaining memory. And it's just from dehydration. Studies are showing us that dehydration has more of an impact on our mental performance than our physical performance. So the role of having water and purely water on that brain is really important. And I think sometimes you can see it if you think about sport again, and that second half, right at that second half, you'll have a lot more goals scored or something like that will often happen. They come off the bench and there's a goal. And it's because it can take 20 minutes for that water from the mouth to get to that cell. So there's a delay time. So even though at halftime they've gone off and had their drinks and had their fluids, it hasn't hit that cell for hydration. And you can notice that. Do you know what I mean? There's often that happens, and it's because the brain isn't there yet to catch up because it's not hydrated enough. We don't want to let that brain get dehydrated because we know that's going to make it harder for them to retain information, solve problems, and concentrate. Particularly if our students are going through long study periods, they're sitting for periods, they're having to concentrate. So drinking fluids before, during, and after all study periods, intense school classings, just constantly having every sort of hour or two a glass of water, it's going to help us really stay on top of our hydration status.
Yeah, so they don't need to be like guzzling bottles and bottles of water all day, as long as they're getting a decent amount. So it could be a cup every hour. It could be, and I guess that goes to the 8 cups a day. But it doesn't, for educators as teachers. So we're talking about students, that they need, they definitely, and they should stay away from those energy drinks. I mean, look, they're great marketing and they do taste good, but I know there's certain I've over the years, I don't really drink them anymore at all. But there were certain ones where I couldn't actually drink them because of the effect on my my system. Like I would have, let's say I could drink Red Bull, no problems. I got the energy kick, and then I went on with drinking water because I knew my body needed it. But then I had another one. I can't remember which one it was. But as soon as I drank that, within probably 10 or 15 minutes, my guts were just churning, and it was like I physically in pain from the reaction from it. Now I'm assuming it was just one of the ingredients that my body didn't like. But it seems that some of these students, it doesn't matter what it does, they are just pounding these cans. Like I've seen some kids have 2 or 3 of those really tall cans in a day.
It's scary. It's a scary pathway. And why are they needing that level of energy? Are they getting enough sleep, and are they getting a proper nutrition? Because we know if we're not eating right, we're not feeling right. And so therefore, if we're not eating right, if we're not having that breakfast, we're not having that lunch, we're feeling tired. Instead of getting food, we go and get a quick fix, an energy fix, isn't it? A can of Coke and a Mars bar, energy, and we're using that to replace the body's requirement of food. But unfortunately, that drops off, and then we need another fix. And we're going to a behavior habit, like you said, getting that energy drink instead of what the body actually needed to produce its own energy. It's BB Bounce, it's B vitamins, and those things that are going to give natural energy. It's just we're not making space for them. Yeah, absolutely right. That other part you mentioned, it's a glass or two every hour. It's not floodgating and drinking liters, because the body utilizes water throughout the day. So it uses water to move through that lymphatic system, to move the B vitamins, to move water soluble vitamins around the body. It's always using water. So the cells only have a certain amount it can fit in, and it utilizes that, and then it needs refueling. So drinking small amounts over the day hydrates the cell. The cell can't fit 3 liters in one go. It's not the requirement. It needs small amounts over the day, and that stays on top of better hydration.
Yeah, well, that's what I try and do. And like, if a student says, "Oh, look, can I get a drink of water?" It's like, yeah, I've got no hesitation going, yeah,
Mm.
have some water. Maybe you carry a bottle with you, but yeah, go get a drink and then come
Mm.
back. Now, you touched on like the highs and lows of the energy, and maybe they're not concentrating well. Maybe they're tired. That's why they're hitting up the energy drinks, or they're going for the really high sugar foods. Does your daily intake of whatever it might be, does that have a impact on how you sleep as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're eating highly processed foods. We're seeing the disturbance in sleep patterns, because the body doesn't have the right nutrients through the day, and it's affecting, and we're getting a different wiring of the body. So we're crashing, we're not sleeping solid, because the body needs to do a lot when we sleep, and it needs to do a lot in sort of what we call behind the scenes functions, and it's using the nutrients that we get from our diet to help our sleep. We talked about a lot of neurotransmitters, dopamine and all those things. All those things are part of, do you know what I mean, chemicals, and what we need to make enough to even sleep. So they're those sort of things that we're drawing from our food, our melatonin. They're all those other different neurotransmitters that we're going to get from our diet to enable our sleep.
Yeah, because I mean, I know if I haven't eaten well, I'm tired, but I don't necessarily sleep well, even though
Mm.
I'm physically tired. I don't necessarily sleep well, or I'll wake up and I don't feel rested. Um,
Yes. Yeah, you
from
feel rubbish. Yeah.
So you've given me a lot to think about, Nicole, and I don't like that, because now that means I've got to do some hard work. So now, just as a side note, so you've talked about all these things, and you put it, but you're a mum of two, very active young men. Um, is it, like, practically? Is it a hard thing as well to do that? In, like, it's not just I've got the theory of it all, and this is my job and I know what I do, but actually getting the boys to actually do it, to getting them to eat this and to eat that, and you have to have this one now, or did you start from when they were well little to train them in the right habits?
Um, well, you create consistency in your house, don't they? And so, but they're also socially influenced by schools and other kids and what everyone else eats. So, yes, I can't keep my boys protected at home. And unfortunately, now they're 17 and they know all foods being adults. Um, but I think what we need to do with our food is not overcomplicate it. Keep it really simple and keep the same standards. I always think it's about the good enough diet. It's not about having the perfect diet. It's about being consistent with things so it's practical and easy. And what we do at home and how we lay that out with them and work with our kids to create, because often we don't make those meals, like I said, because we're too tired when we come home. So if we come up with better strategies and come up with meals that we can do with our families that work in, then it's not going to be a burden task or a hard task. And we can make those meals really simple and easy, coming up with breakfasts, particularly for our kids, if we're thinking about it, like, what does that look like? And if we go back to what is our matrix that we were talking about, what is our whole grains for breakfast? So is it our whole grain toast? Then do we layer on it our avocado and our eggs? So we're adding in our healthy fats and our proteins. Or are we doing cereal? But do we add on to it some banana, walnuts, and yogurt? Then we're adding in our protein, fats, and carbohydrates. We can use that in many different foods, and it's kind of finding what your kids like or what they enjoy and adding the layers. That's why I love that we can work in that matrix, because if they don't like banana but they like strawberry, change it. Or if they like apple, you change it. If they like toast or they like cereal, you work in those matrix to make those meals, and then you just execute on repeat.
Yeah, I guess it's having that, it's building that consistency, and I like what you said. It's the was it the good enough, not the perfect. So it's getting what you need, and obviously, sometimes you're gonna have takeout. You're just gonna be too tired to do anything, or you know what? It's school holidays, so we're gonna have a treat, and I'm gonna buy you a box of Fruit Loops.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know even now, the Fruit Loops that we buy from the shops now are well different to the Fruit Loops I used to buy, 20 years ago. So
Absolutely. And that's fun too. Food is interactive and fun. And we always want to create that too. So that is, like you said, and we want to enjoy soul food too. We're made with a soul. So as much as we like to have our protein for whether it's our muscles or whether it's our neurotransmitters on our brain, we're also made with a soul that enjoys pleasure. We enjoy the chocolate. We enjoy the other foods too. They're all honoring. So it's having bits and pieces of all of them. And that's why it's about the good enough diet. It's about what we're doing most consistently and always including in those other things.
yeah, so you don't want to just be. You want to have fun with your food, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you want to be able to enjoy. Obviously, you've got to. There's things that, you need to make sure that you're looking after yourself. But there's also, like they say on the very healthy guys, they have their cheat day where they go out and they have their takeaway burger, or they buy their pizza and stuff like that. But then for the rest of the other 6 nights of the week, they're eating, you know balanced meals, and they're preparing and they're doing all that sort of stuff. So to have the occasional cheat day, and to have the fun foods for your kids, is all part of a balanced diet.
Yeah, perfect, Phil. Very much so.
Well, that's good to know. That's good to know. Nicole, look, we could probably chat for at least another hour on how to eat and drink, because we haven't even touched on a teacher's diet yet, and so that could be a whole other episode for how to we've talked about more about the younger people in schools, and it's great to hear some of these practical strategies, and to get more of the understanding of the why behind what we do. And because I know that there's schools who come from lower socioeconomic areas. They come from, students come in, the parents are, they might be working 2 or 3 jobs. They're almost, latchkey kids where they're just dropped off at school. They have, there's a whole range, as you know, of students in schools. But some of the schools that bring in these breakfast clubs, so they put on the breakfast for the student. And then all of a sudden, it started with maybe 10 kids who didn't get meals. Their parents maybe couldn't afford it, or they lived in an environment where they didn't know where they were going to get their next meal from, or they would just had to rush out the door. That all of a sudden, the breakfast club got bigger and bigger. They provided more and more food, and they provided a good range of breads and cereals and fruits and nuts and different meat proteins and all that sort of stuff. But all of a sudden, they saw a change in behavior. They saw a change in academic performance. So I guess my last sort of technical question, and we sort of touched on it, but my last sort of technical question is breakfast, as they say, the most important meal, or is it one of those ones where it's just, okay, time to top up the tank for the day? How does that work? Because you see, if they eat well in the morning, they perform well for the day, or is it just how does that?
It's definitely going to be the meal that sets the tone for the day. It's going to start the body. As we talked about, all these nutrients our body can't make, and it's needing the daily requirements of them. So your body starts functioning when you start putting them in your body. So if we're not putting them in till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the body's running on sub-zero. You wouldn't drive your car. I wouldn't drive from, New South Wales to you in Queensland and hope that when I get there, I'll put the fuel in the car then. That will kill me. The car will die. So it won't run on empty. Our body is the same. It can't run on empty. We need to fuel up if we're going to perform. And so it's the same, isn't it? What we put in our day, it doesn't mean at 5 a.m. we have to be putting breakfast in if that's the moment our feet touch the floor. But we do need to, in those first couple of hours, set the tone for the day. And what we choose to eat there sets that tone. So by us putting in, like you said at the Breakfast Club, when they're doing the cereals or the toast and the eggs, keeping it simple but putting it in there, you're setting that day up now to be stronger, and your body will start its processing. The brain will turn on. The things the body needs to do all start happening. The metabolism starts. Everything starts firing. The engine is on. So your performance is now going to be leveraged to greater because you've started it. And then, but those foods run out. And this is the requirement we have on food. We then need to, what will that lunch meal be? And bring that second one in if we're going to focus in on that second half of the day, which is where I know those last periods in class, everyone drops off because they're not then owning that second meal. So we start with one, but we want to power it in on two. And that second one is where then we get that better performance as well as hydration to get those last few periods. So therefore we're coming home and studying and doing those things. So they build on each other. They start at brekkie and they build.
Yeah. Well, that's again another valuable tip for people who are listening. That start off well and just keep going. And like I guess to a certain extent, that old saying, breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, dinner like a pauper, almost, where it's you're tapering down, but you're getting everything you need, but you're starting off strong and you're starting off well.
Yeah, definitely. But not complicating it. I think there's a lot of noise around food, like you said, and we complicate it. We don't need to complicate it. The food's pretty simple. Nothing I've mentioned in the food's been new. Everything's been things that people have heard. We know about these. We know about chicken sandwich. It's not rocket science. We just need to take the time to prepare it so we can eat it.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the key things is planning, being organized, and actually taking the time and investing into your own health.
Yeah.
Well, Nicole, I want to thank you so much for your time. You have been absolutely amazing. And just before we finish up, I've got just a couple of last questions. Now, the first question is, what do you have a challenge that you'd like to put out there to people? I guess, especially since we've been talking about food, is there a challenge that you want to say, hey, just try this, or have a crack at this?
Oh, okay. This is open mic. Challenge. I would just love people to be more strategic with their planning. Just take 5 minutes on their weekend and then midweek and just go, what are the next 2 meals? Don't run to the shops for dinner tonight. Get dinner and tomorrow night. Like, just think ahead a little bit. I think that is something if people can do, they will see gold flow from it.
All right, so more planning and more purpose in their diet. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, it wouldn't be the Tattoo Teacher podcast if I didn't ask you, do you have any tattoos, Nicole?
I'm clean skin.
I think yes. The more and more people I talk to, which is fantastic. I mean, because it's an expensive habit, and it looks great, but I think so anyway. But
they're awesome.
more and more people that I'm talking to, and more of my guests don't have the tattoos. So I was talking with someone just the other week, so I have to actually go back to all my interviews and actually find out where the scale is, and I'll have to share that.
Okay.
Now,
I am clean skin.
Oh, well, that's fantastic. You're a wonderful human. Now, last but certainly not least, Nicole, if people want to get in contact with you to find out more about what you do, or maybe talk to you, in your practice,
Mm.
how will they go about contacting you?
Yeah, awesome. So my website is just my name, NicoleBarber.com. So NicoleBarber.com. All my information is there. I work online, which means I have clients in Tasmania, in Queensland, in Northern Territory, around Australia, which is so amazing. The ability for our internet, even our tonight's chat, the way we can create connection now. So it doesn't matter where we're located, we can connect in, and I use that online platform to create, that support and accountability to check in with people all the time. So yeah, my website would be the place.
Fantastic. I'll throw that in the show notes for everyone who wants to, if to get in contact with you and to find out more about what you do as a dietitian and nutritionist.
Thanks, Phil.
Now, Nicole, again, thank you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you. It's so good to see you again. Have a good chat. Give my best to that amazing family of yours.
Will do. Thank you
And
for tonight.
oh, you're most welcome. The pleasure was definitely all mine.
Awesome. Thanks, Phil.
See ya. Thank you so much for listening to the Tattoo Teacher podcast. I hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it insightful. If you like what you heard, it would mean so much to me if you could either like, follow, and subscribe to whatever platform you are listening on. The music was by DJ Fruit Salad. Thanks again for listening. Stay cool. Be blessed.